Everyone, thanks for checking out this video. Today I'm going to be showcasing my custom application called Llama Chat. This is an offline chatbot. So to get this demo started, first I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi and we'll launch our application here in the terminal using Python m app.main. And here it's going to start loading all of the necessary components. And once it loads, it's already loaded over here. I'm going to just resize it so it looks good. This is what it looks like, right? And we can start the demo off by asking a simple question like, sorry, who are you? And so here we can see that it's generating. I'm going to shrink this down so we can keep an eye on what's going on here in the terminal. So it's coming up with that response. Here's what it returned. And we can ask follow-up questions. For example, tell me more. And it takes a little bit here, but it's able to answer a follow-up question by taking the original question and then the generated response as context and our next question, which then returns a related answer. So we can say something like, tell me more about limitations number 2. Just got its response here. And we can see limitations number 2 was biased data, and it's answering here more about biased data. Right. So from here, I can showcase a little bit of what's happening on the backside. So here in MongoDB, we can see all of the application's conversations histories. And this is what that last conversation looks like, right? And we can see the last response here. And it puts, some metadata like timestamps. And it's also doing some work on the back end to come up with a name for this conversation. So we can see the name here assigned was what is conversational AI. And here we have a feature where we can delete some conversations, right? And it pops up this box, so we can just say delete yes, and so on. And so if we go in here, we can see Mongo had 38 conversations previously, but we can refresh it and it's now down to 35. We can also use Mongo here to delete all documents, right? Just get a fresh start. That's been cleared. We should have 0 documents in the conversation history and 0 documents in the knowledge. All right, so I hit new conversation, and we're going to start the next portion of the demo, which is showing the image recognition portion. So this is running Meta Llama 3.2. It's the 11B model with vision. So one of the features that we can do here is give the model some images, and then it can help kind of figure them out. So here's an interesting photo that I took just of some items on my countertop, and we can ask it to do some recognition on those. So I'm going to select that photo here. I'll hit open. And so now it should have this image here in its context. And just as a reminder here, this is still all happening offline. We can check here, the Wi-Fi is still off. So all this is happening locally on the computer. So here we can see image uploaded and displayed, and it shows the image that's selected. I'll minimize this and move it down here so we can see as it's processing. So we can ask some questions about this image. For example, list all the items in the image. So it's taking our, it's passing our image token, and then it's passing our prompt, list all the items in the image, and it's saying passing one image to the processor. So here it's generating a response. It looks like it's seeing a bottle of red wine, a bottle of white wine, a can of cream of mushrooms, a bag of Doritos, a bag of tortilla chips, a can of wild albacore tuna. And so we can see it's kind of returning a lot of stuff. And one of the settings that we have access to changing is, let's see here, we have temperature, which controls the creativity of the model. So right now I gave it like really low temperature, which means it's going to be very specific. If we up this more to a normal range like 0.7, we should be able to see the response start to change a little bit. And then I'll just showcase, we can change the user background color. Let's make that be green. And this pulls up a color palette here. And so we'll make that be lime green, and we want the assistant bubble color to be, I don't know, let's say this, let's go with tangerine. Yeah. So we'll apply that, and we will start a new conversation. So I'm going to try this time with a different image after changing those settings, and we will take a look at this guy here. So this is an image of an owl. It's an AI generated image, but we will ask a question, is this a mouse? And so here we can see that the colors have changed on our bubbles. We can see here that on the back end it's passed the image, and this time it's processed the response much quicker after changing some of those settings. And it's saying, no, this is not a mouse, it appears to be an owl's eye. Right? We can ask follow-up questions. For example, can I find this animal in Colorado? If you're referencing the owl, there's several species of owl that can be found in Colorado, including the great horned owl, barn owl, and great gray owl. I'm going to try again with a different image. So this time we will use this grocery basket image, which has some food items in there, and we can ask it something like, list the items in the image. And so on the back end, we can see, list the items in the image. It's got the image token. It's passing it as reference. It has to generate a conversation name, and it returns the following answer. So we see some salmon fillets, some lettuce, tomatoes, eggs, milk, bread, butternut squash, potatoes, cabbage, cheese, butter. And we can ask some follow-up questions, like, for example, what can I make for dinner using these items? Let me change some of these colors now. Background color, we'll do dark blue, ocean, and assistant, we will do, let's go with midnight, and we'll keep the text white. Apply and close, okay, and we can refresh here. So it's telling me, here's a few suggestions, for what we can make for dinner. Just a little bit lighter. Actually, I can hide the chat history here so that we can see our conversation a little bit better. So here I can say, give me the recipe for number 4. Which number 4 here was the baked salmon with lettuce and tomato salad. Let's see what it comes up with here. So what it's doing in the background, it's taking, this whole conversation and coming up with a response. So it's going to maybe take a little bit longer this time because it's got some more context that it has to get through. But here's the response, baked salmon, 4 servings, telling us the ingredients and for the salad and what to do for the instructions and some tips and some nutritional information. So that's pretty nice. All right, so for our next feature, we're going to be talking about RAG, and RAG is retrieval-augmented generation, which is just a fancy way of saying, hey, here's my document, go through it so that we can give the model some additional knowledge based off of whatever document you want to feed it. So as a reminder, we're still offline here, and that's one of the key features of this application, since we can give it our private documents without having to upload them into somebody else's server, and it's just going to be the safest thing for your private documents. So to get that started, we can hit the Manage Knowledge button, and we can upload some knowledge. And for this demo, I just downloaded an associate handbook from the internet. And so we hit Upload Knowledge, and it pops up this notification. Hey, we've uploaded and stored the PDF. However, we still need to rebuild the index, which is going to create some vector embeddings for similarity searching. So in our case, we are using FICE, which is the Facebook AI similarity search, to index those embeddings so that we can retrieve them during conversations. All right, so I'm going to ask a question without RAG so that we can see the response, and then we can compare it to the RAG response. What temp is good for me to come to work? Right, and so since it doesn't have any specific guidelines here, then the model is just going to do its best to check with whatever knowledge it has and to figure out what's a safe temperature for someone to come to work. All right, and so here it's bringing some information about office spaces and comfortable temperatures, and yeah, it's not necessarily what we're looking for, right? If you're unsure about your ideal temperature for your workspace, try talking to your supervisor or HR representative. All right. In the document here, we can see that there's some temperature protocols, and in here we can see the detail that says you can go to work only if your recorded temperature stands below 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 37.5 degrees Celsius. So this is on page 7 of 24 of the handbook here, and I will minimize that, and we will start a new conversation, and this time we'll enable the RAG, and we can ask the same question. What temp is okay for me to come to work? And this time we'll notice it says generating a RAG-based response. So what it's done here, right, has gone into the manual and it's pulled up the relevant sections and it's passed these sections to the model as context. And so from here, it was able to generate a response using this information, which we can see matches the handbook and says if your temperature stands below 37.5 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's move on to our next feature. So I'll start a new conversation here, and I'm going to show the upload files feature. And so with upload files, we can upload a different variety of files, pretty much every file you can think of. But for this demo, I'm going to use this test data, which is just a simple Excel sheet. You know, it's got some items listed, like flights, cars, hotels, food, and a budget per day. You know, flights, $500 per flight, and I need 2 of them, and the car is going to be $200 per day, and I need it for 5 days, and so on and so forth. So I will attach the document, and you'll see a notification that says you selected test data. So I'll hit OK. We can see the selected files here. We can remove the attachments here, and we can see what this is doing on the back end. It just says files uploaded. All right. So now we can ask a conversation about our attachment and see what the response is. So since it's a kind of budget information, we should ask it, how much money should I budget for this trip? So we can see on the back end that it's taken the file contents from test data and it's turned it into a JSON. And I know that went really fast, but it's turned into a JSON object that then can be passed to the large language model as context so that it can figure out its math and give us the suggestion that we should be budgeting at least $5,000 for this trip. We can then ask follow-up questions and say, give me some travel suggestions that I can go to with this budget. Keeping it pretty vague here. And so while that's thinking, looks like it's already done thinking. But yeah, here we go. It's giving us some domestic trips, Las Vegas and the Grand Canyon. It's telling us, how we can break up the money. San Francisco, New Orleans. It's telling us internationally we can go to Cancun, Mexico, Costa Rica, that kind of stuff. And I didn't even tell it where or my point of origin is, so I'm surprised it came up with those answers. But we're going to take a look at our next feature here. It's going to be the same upload files, but this time we're going to upload a different file type. Let's look at the mover script. And so this is an application a Python application that uses this Python code to just jiggle the mouse a little bit and keep my session active for whenever I'm doing a large task, like downloading a big data set or something where I want my computer to, stay active. So yeah, we can ask it questions. For example, what is the attached script doing? And so it's thinking, and we can see here on the back end, right, that even this Python file, it doesn't have to be an Excel file. It can take the file contents and it knows, if it's not an Excel file, then, we've told it for these types of files, you need to convert it into a JSON. For text-based files, then no conversion is needed. So it looks like it's come up with a response. It's generating the name for the conversation, and here is the summary. So this is a graphical user interface application built with Python's Tkinter library. The application is designed to move the mouse cursor periodically at a user-defined interval. Here's a breakdown of the application's functionality, and so on and so forth. So we can say something like, help me change the script so that the default time between moves is 1, or let's just say 60 seconds. And so we'll see it's thinking. And again, it's taking the previous response and it's taking this code and it's going to try to come up with a response. And just as a reminder, this is still working offline. The Wi-Fi is off. And while this is thinking, since this might take it a little bit longer, we can talk about some of the settings here again. So we can define the maximum response length, so we can kind of shorten this or lengthen it based off whatever we need. We can limit the conversation history to give it less context so it thinks a little bit faster. We can change the colors. We can change the font. On the advanced settings side of things, we can look at the RAG settings where we can control the size of the chunks that are being retrieved, the number of chunks that are being retrieved, and the overlap between the chunks that is being retrieved. So let's take a look at the response that it came up with, right? And so to change the default time between moves to 60 seconds, you can simply update the self-interval variables. And part of the backend, I had told it, if you're going to suggest a fix to a Python code, make sure you wrap it in triple quotes because I'm planning to be able to extract the suggested code later on. So here's the response, and we can see that the self-interval changed to 60, changed from 30 to 60. So we should just be able to copy this script out and make the updates, or we can just go in and edit the script ourselves. So now that we know that we can pass files as attachments, we can pass images as attachments, we can add knowledge that it doesn't previously have, that kind of opens up into our next feature called the Launchpad. So I will open a new conversation. We can show the chat history real quick to show that all of our conversations are being stored in here. We can even go back and look at a previous conversation, and it will provide us the summary. So again, new conversation, and I'm going to hide the chat history, and I'm going to display the Launchpad. And this might look a little weird here in this aspect ratio that we've got, but just bear with me. And so in Launchpad, we can select a folder, because as you saw, we were doing an example with code, but that was a pretty short, simple script, and it can get very time consuming to attach all of your scripts one by one and start asking questions. So Launchpad's a feature that's supposed to help us with coding. And so I'm going to open a larger project that I have. For example, I'm going to pass the entire Llama chat folder. So we'll open up Llama chat. And so what it's going to do this time, right, it's going to ingest the code. And it's passing it to MongoDB as knowledge. And then it's going to rebuild the FICE index so that we can do some retrieval on this code. And so here we can see that it opens up kind of this file tree, and I'm going to make this window a little bit wider so we can see the rest of it. But in the file tree, then we can navigate to the specific scripts. For example, the Launchpad, which is the script of what I'm showing right now. And we can see the whole Launchpad script, right? And we can edit in here if we need to, and we can make those edits and save the file and save over the script. I'll show the Mongo side real quick. So we can see that the Mongo side now has 209 documents, right? 209 documents here, where all we had really passed was the associate handbook earlier, which I'm going to get rid of now. But now it's got all of the Llama chat files in here, right? And so whenever a script exceeds that 1,000 character chunk size that we had previously specified, it's going to truncate it, it's going to have a bit of overlap, and then it's going to keep going through till it finishes the rest of that code, and it's going to do that for all of the scripts in this project, right? So that we can have a conversation with it using the RAG functionality. And so here we can enable RAG again. I'm going to remove the mouse tickler attachment from the previous example, and we can ask again a different question, but tell me about the Llama chat project. List the available features and potential uses. All right, so Llama Chat project overview. Llama Chat is an offline chatbot project using Llama 3.211b vision model, which is a large language model developed by Meta AI. Project utilizes RAG, architecture, web search, and chat history to provide full conversational AI experience. Has the conversation interface, offline capability, and so on. Chat history, it's customizable. some potential uses here for customer support, virtual assistants, language learning, research and development, entertainment, education, and business intelligence. From here, we can start asking some more detailed questions about our project. For example, what does the Launchpad.py do? So we can look here and see kind of what it's grabbing, right? So it looks like it retrieved some knowledge from main. It looks like it retrieved some knowledge for Launchpad, and then some more from main. And it's coming up with a response now. And again, it might take a little bit since it's looking up the old answers as well. So the Launchpad PY is a part of the Llama Chat project, defines the Launchpad frame. Here's the main functionality: file explorer and code editor, file ingestion, key methods, potential use cases, code review, knowledge ingestion, file management. The next feature, and I think we've gone through all of these buttons and shown the Launchpad and the chat history and how we can interact with the conversations and go back and look at some previous conversations. For example, the grocery list from earlier where we got our recipe recommended to us. And we can go in and delete some of these conversations, which again we know is going to delete them out of Mongo and they'll no longer be stored. And again, as a reminder, this is all happening offline. But I'm going to go ahead and close this part of the project, so I'm just going to kill the terminal here. And I'm going to launch a different portion of the project called it's a web-based server. So Python m server, I think it's server. Let me take a look. Serve.server. It's going to run a Flask server. And so the Flask server enables us to interact with the model through an internet browser. So again, as a reminder, right, the Wi-Fi is still off. But once this starts to load here, or finishes loading, then we can look in our terminal. We can find the IP address where it's being hosted. All right. I'm going to shrink this down a bit here. And so here's what that is going to look like on a web browser. And again, the Wi-Fi is still off. So as long as you're connected to the same network, then you can access this page from that IP address and interact with the model, right? So I can pull this up on my phone and we can, interact with it, which is great because one of the big use cases for this is being able to upload images. And unfortunately, I can't easily take images with my computer, but I definitely can do so with my phone. So if you're interested in that, you can check out one of my other videos where I showcase how that works. But from here, right, we can just, quickly test some of the same features from before. For example, tell me about the Fast and the Furious. So we can have that question and ask it, and it should come up with a response here pretty quickly. So here we are. Here's our assistant response, right? And we can ask follow-up questions. We can do all of the same things that we did with the desktop application, such as uploading a file, uploading an image. We have options here for changing our settings, our colors, the histories, the model loading. We can upload files. And then we can also look at conversation history. So we can load up like this budget trip from earlier, right? And we can see here, and there was our question. Here's the file that we passed, and here's the response from the assistant. So I appreciate you making it to the end of the video. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything that you think we should add to this. I'm very interested to hear what kind of features the YouTube community is interested in seeing. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe so you can see any future videos.